Good morning. Welcome back to meetrabbits.org. Today the topic of the day is breeding age. So let's say you have a new pair or trio or a new young doe or buck. What age can they start breeding? So if we come back here, my breeders are against this back wall. You can see I've got the bucks a little separated from the does. Going to do a little rearranging in here hopefully this weekend, but this is my setup for now. So my youngest here are the Champagne d'Argents, which we've been talking about lately. And they are now about 7-8 months old. I guess more like 8. We've already had a litter out of Peony. Hopefully Rose here is bred and we'll have a litter next month. So these are my youngest. When do I start breeding? So if you look this up online, it's kind of interesting that there's a pretty wide range of ages given, even from some pretty, high-end respectable resources. Like the Merck Vet Manual lists like 4 to 4.5 months, even for medium-sized breeds, where, like Michigan State University is listing more towards 6. That's kind of not a huge variation, but at those ages, fairly significant. I personally would tend to go with Michigan State University's recommendation of 6 months old for the medium breeds, and medium being your typical meat rabbits, and those are things like the Californians, New Zealands, Champagne d'Argents, Rex, Silver Fox, most of the more common ones that are around, say, 10-ish pounds at maturity. Your giant breeds, your Flemish giants, things of that nature, they're much slower growing. It takes them more time to put on all that skeleton and body before they're really developed and ready for breeding and birth. And so with those more giant breeds, you need to give them longer time. Most people would not breed them before 8 or 9 months. That's not a breed that I keep or really don't even have any interest in keeping. But if that is something, or you've got them in your mix, because a lot of people do crossbreed those with some of the other breeds, you probably want to go a little on the higher end. You can go as low as 5 months on the typical medium breeds, and I have done it. But I will say that when I've had some issues, it's more likely to be on a young doe, or if you're breeding, say, the bucks may even be a little too young to get it. They could even be not very potent at that age. You give them another month or two, they usually sort things out. They increase in fertility and you have better results. 2 big reasons to give them just a little more time and go more towards a 6 months. Some will go even higher than that. One is to give the body time to develop, the rabbit time to be fully sized so that there's no problems with stuck kits and birthing. The other is to develop those breeding instincts. So for the bucks, it would be the mounting and actually breeding act. But along with that, sperm count and potency. And for the does, it would be fertility, potency of the eggs, body size and shape again, so that they're not having difficulty giving birth, but also to develop that mothering instinct. You'll get a range, no matter what the age is, of good and bad mothers in your rabbitry. If you keep enough rabbits over time, you'll see that. But also you'll get a range due to the age and their instinct and whether that's developed. So some of the problems you might have with an earlier breeding and delivering doe are maybe they're not building a good enough nest, maybe they're not pulling enough fur, they may be delivering on the wire or on the ground. If you're in a colony setup, kits freeze to death, they get too cold, and they die if you don't catch them soon enough. And then after that, they might possibly not remember to keep going in and feeding them. So with feeding, I will say that is something you're not really likely to see, because they're only going to go feed them a couple of times a day. That's part of their natural prey instinct. So don't be concerned if you're not seeing it, but watch the condition of your kits. Bellies should be full. They should not be too wrinkly, dry, or dehydrated, and they should be growing at a pretty quick pace. Take a look at this little cutie here. This little champagne. These guys are going on 6 weeks old now. Looking good. So again, there's a range. Some people in the show arenas will wait even longer than 6 months to breed, more towards 8, because that is an age where the rabbit should have reached their full mature size. Breeding earlier can result in either slower rate of gain to get to that mature size, or it could possibly even stunt them to where they'll maybe never meet that maximum. That's not necessarily really much of an issue. It's more of something that show people are concerned with, because at 8 months that mature weight is going on their pedigree, and that's going to become part of their permanent record. So some people will err on the side of, you know, bigger development and full maturity before they'll start breeding. But you know, for most of us, if you're into more of a production mindset, then you want to get your rabbits breeding sooner rather than later. The difference between 6 months and 8 months to start breeding is at least a full litter. And, you know, so that's anywhere from 4 to 10 or 12 even grow outs, depending on how much they deliver. Also, it takes some time a lot of times for new does to ramp up. So it's not uncommon that their first 1, 2, 3 litters are going to be on the smaller side. Usually by 3, they're pretty well sorted out. But, you know, those first litters may be small. In another video, I talked about how Peony's first litter here is only 4. I'm not concerned because of the combination of high heat this past summer and the fact that she's a brand new mom, first litter. You know, I'm not disappointed with our litter of 4 for our first mother. I've had others that were even lower than that, but eventually they ramp up and they come up. And if they don't come up in litter size, then that's a potential for a cull. That's another subject for a different day, but all things to consider. So there you have it. Come on over to meetrabbits.org. There's more detail, more considerations, and more conversation over there regarding this issue. Different ideas of how you might play and manage with things, choosing your breeding age, but a good solid age that's very common among especially production breeders would be starting at the 6-month mark. Hope this gives you some insight and some help. Any questions or comments respectfully added in the comment section are welcome. And again, come on over to the website for even more information.